What's happening? Mind, body, soul, check. 1, 2. I'm in my zone. You know what time it is. We're back at the healing table. I've got my mentor, my big bro, Nigel Stewart, founder of the Center Pan African Thought, entrepreneurial father. And I think it's very important as men that we have a better understanding of what emotional intelligence is, because we often place that concept on women and say women are more emotional, men are not emotional, men are not supposed to be emotional. This is some of the frivolous cases that's been put forth by society. And just me and my big bro is going to unpack that and begin to understand exactly where different emotions play their role and where did some of the stigma even come from. You know what I mean? And what does it mean for us as a human species moving forward? How do we understand emotional intelligence so we can make better choices? And, like I say, it's healing on everything. So, Nigel, welcome, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank
For
you.
people that don't even know, right? For all of you that keep telling me how dope my book is and how much you guys love it, like, this is the man that actually inspired me to write the book. I didn't think I was at the level where I could, to be honest. He was like, bro, write that book. You know what I'm saying? So even the second book I'm writing now, is so much fire in there. I'm just like, oh, Nigel, I can't wait to see my manuscript. It's gonna explode after you read it. Because so and I love it because it's I always tell man them get with people in this life that are just a bit more seasoned than you. Because when you're going through something or you're thinking about something, it just makes sense. And for most of us, unfortunately, us that's born in the 80s, our fathers weren't really practical there in terms of emotionally, not always absentees, but just emotionally wasn't there. But it's always important because then sometimes you're thinking of something, and this is a subject I've thought about. And then Nigel saying away, I'm like, that's how I need to explain it. So if I want to articulate to my missus or to someone, this is the better way to communicate. So tell us more about who you are, what you do, you know what I mean, and some of your aspirations for society, because you are a community leader.
Thank you, bro. I mean, first and foremost, I gotta say, really appreciate you welcoming me to your podcast.
Much love,
Um, it's unbelievable to see the journey that
man.
you've taken and
From
where
Brixton.
you've come from Brixton
From
days.
Brixton. If you don't
Um,
know history, bro, from Brixton, some little community. In fact, the place was so obscure. I used to ask people from Brixton if they knew the place. They're like, no. I was like, wait, so where am I going, bro? But it was
some
Brixton.
backstreet church,
Yeah.
right?
That's where me and
Yeah.
Nigel first linked up, man.
Yeah, no, but to see you then, and I know you got the same fire in your belly as you had then, but
Oh man.
I think,
I'm even more
I think,
seasoned now. I've got the fire and I'm more seasoned.
right now
Yeah.
you've got the seasoning, now you've got
Yeah.
the craft and the skill, and you're going from strength to strength. I see you doing really big things, and I'm super
Much
proud
love.
of you.
Dope,
Super
dope.
proud to be here, man.
Man, we need that
Um,
as well. You need man them to tell you that you're doing well. Like, don't feel some type of way.
yeah,
It's not an ego thing. Sometimes man them need another brother that you respect or another woman you respect just to say, hey, you're going the right way. So it goes a long way too. Just want to highlight that for my
yeah.
listeners.
So as far as my journey, I mean, I'm the founder and chief exec of the Center of Pan African Thought, and the center is essentially a think tank where we try to think about policy ideas that can help our community, the African diaspora,
Mm,
come together and work on, I guess, Pan Africanism, which
mm,
I define as, the political project to unify a continent
mm,
and its diaspora
mm,
um, under a federal state, and to me, it's essential that for all that we've been through as a people, as a population, um, I think it's essential for us to find unity, common ground, to work on our struggles together
mhm,
and to work on our condition together.
mhm,
So the center is really set up to um, look at ideas and how we can do that in Britain, and look at ideas and how we can fight the evil of racism and overcome that to try and work on these issues and problems. Um,
that's dope.
so that's I guess what I'm known for. Probably what I'm less known for. I own a recruitment business.
Mhm.
Um, I've been an entrepreneur now for 20 plus years. You
20,
see,
Gee,
yeah, I've done everything that you can probably think of, from
gee.
retail entrepreneur, e-commerce entrepreneur, finance, real estate, um, all kinds of different businesses I've had over the
That's mad.
years. So
That's
I
mad.
really classify myself as, yeah, an entrepreneur and an organizer, I guess.
Mm,
Um, And of late, over the years, I guess a lot of people see me a bit as a bit of a public intellectual and ask me
Mm.
to, talk and commission me to do work for them and research and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm blessed.
Bro, to be honest,
For
I'm
the
happy to
things
see
that
you
I'm
doing
passionate
that.
about,
I'm happy to
yeah,
see. I'm happy to see you doing that. I used to tell Nigel all the time, like, bro, you're gonna have to put yourself out there. You're gonna have to put yourself out there, man. I'm like, people buy because I used to learn for people that don't even know, when you see me on live and you see me speaking, it was at the center of Pan-African thought that I really was able to incubate and learn that because Nigel was booking so many
right,
stuff. I was just honing it. He'll come and give me pointers like, okay, you're moving too fast, slow down here, get the people here. That there is the
yeah,
refinement. So when I jump on live, you guys are loving it and you lot are feeding into it. Trust me, I had to go and develop this somewhere. I had to go, figure out what was the move. You know what I mean? I had to figure out what the move was. Oh, we lost Nigel there. I had to figure out what the move was because the reality of it is that when you're coming up or you're trying to be a public speaker or you're trying to figure out what the next move is, whether you're a presenter or something of that nature, you have to remember that you're gonna have to find a place to exercise. Work out that muscle. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have to work out that muscle. So one thing that's very very important too while you're working out that muscle is to understand that you got to have the confidence. It's very important for you to have the confidence to do that. You know what I mean? You have to have the confidence to actually go and, work out in the gym, as they say, as Kobe say, shooting in the gym. So you got to be able to do that. So I did at the Center of Pan-African Thought. Carry on.
yeah. I remember those days where you used to come and spit your bars and get comfortable in front of big audiences and express yourself. Those were fiery days.
Nah,
Um,
trust. It's been
yeah,
interesting, like from Birmingham to Manchester as well. Like we've been some spots
yeah,
too.
all over the
We've been in
country.
debate. I
Yeah,
miss the debates. I ain't gonna lie, I miss the debates, man. Like, yo, we need to bring that back or something
true.
because we see how versus is going on now in music and entertainment, bro. We should have been versus. Pan African Center should be having versus for intellects, so we can spray bars back and forth. And it's a better shift of gear from all the stuff we see in pop culture that influences the youth, where they wrote about rap beef and where people
Mhm.
actually get hurt. I always enjoy that intellectual sparring. You know what I mean? And I met some brothers that I was like, no, they are on their thing. Like these people are not playing. And one
Yeah.
I remember specifically, I don't know if you remember the one that we were talking about how his religion helped black people or something like that. There's one
Oh
Ghanaian brother.
yeah, is religion for African people.
In religion, there's one Ghanaian brother that was murdering it. Like, what's his
Oh,
name?
for
There's a
real?
Ghanaian brother.
It
Huh?
might have been my bro Dalian.
It might be, yeah, because bro,
Yeah.
when he came on with his presentation, he was there to dismantle any thought in your head that you thought about Christianity being an African, bro. He came with receipts, invoices, tax
Yep.
returns. He came with it. Oh, and it was lit. It was
Yeah,
lit.
shout out to Dalian, man. He's been studying for a long time, and he has a brilliant organization called Ancestral Voices. Check it out. They've got
Yeah, for
lots of
sure, man.
DVDs and learning materials if people want to dive into the whole concept of African spirituality. Highly recommend it.
Nah, it's dope. It's dope. So, Nige, when you were growing up, I know you're from Jamaica, but because
Mm.
I'm always interested to understand like what made you the man you are today. And I think that was the first question I asked your dad, like what at your 40th. I was just like, what were you doing? Success leaves clues in it. So me, I'm
Mm.
inquisitive. I'm like, how do you because I have a son, so I'm thinking to myself, I'm picking from everyone, from you, from any male I can find that's been in their son's life a long time, just trying to pick his brain. And he spoke about, principles, and he's a disciplinarian, I guess, because he was like discipline, principles, you install good values. And I took that from
Yeah.
him as well. But your dad's mad intimidating, bro. Ain't gonna lie. Your dad's mad intimidating. Bro, Nigel's dad is mad intimidated.
He's
I
gentle,
was like,
man.
bro,
I mean, he's a big dude, but
he's a big dude. It's like Nigel on steroids, bro, or something, man. So when you were growing up, man, what was it like? How did you start to form this emotional identity or this person we know as Nigel?
I grew up in a place called Luton, which is 30 miles from London. Um, and really, I'm a product of second generation Windrush, where my dad came over to work in the Vauxhall factory. The Vauxhall
Mm,
factory is in Luton.
mm,
So this is sort of the beginning of the Margaret Thatcher era. Thatcher and Reagan era, start of
Okay.
neoliberalism, we call it.
Okay.
And my dad basically found a job working in the factories. And so we moved to Luton Town, a
Okay.
small town that I think, looking back now, was structured just to produce people who could work in those factories and could do
Okay.
manual labor.
Someone that can pull
So
up. That's not far.
yeah, so there wasn't much, there wasn't like the university wasn't there. There's university there
Mm.
now. Um, so it was more like an industrial town, a factory town. And so education wasn't massive, there wasn't a big intellectual culture, I guess, a
Mm.
culture of learning in Luton. So for me, I was just like a lot of young black African boys, or West Indians as they used to call us then. We were
Mm.
just, trying to survive in the system. It's funny because if you read an author called Bernard Cord, he documents what he describes as ESNs, educationally subnormal, and
Mm.
that
Sorry, lost Nigel there again. We come back in a second. There he is. Just briefly. There we go.
this I keep getting thrown out. He keeps throwing me out.
Don't know what's going on with that. What? Karen? Yeah. Sorry. There was a book.
That's mad. Yeah, there's a book called by Bernard Cord called How the West Indian Was Made Educationally Subnormal.
Oh.
Anyway, the whole thesis of the book was that actually it was a policy of the British government to have what they called ESNs, and they thought of people coming from the West Indies and immigrants
Right.
at that time as educationally subnormal, intellectually inferior, and so
Mm.
basically they had these schools designated where they won't put so much funding into the education, they won't resource
Bare
these
minimum.
schools as much. Yeah, bare minimum, and teacher expectations were low, and you never
Wow.
really came out of those schools with any kind of academic credentials or aspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. You already capped.
You were capped. You were just basically
Mm.
taught to become a unit of labor, to work in the factories. Um, so I grew up in that kind of system. I didn't find out till later on. When you're in it, you don't really
Yeah. Yeah.
know,
You're
do
a
you?
kid. You're a kid at the time. Okay. It's
Yeah,
true.
you're
So
a
the
kid.
Thatcher's thing.
Yes, but that was actually a government policy. And if you read
That's
that book by,
crazy. That
by
is
Bernard Cord,
insane.
you realize the efforts that the state went through to actually dumb us down, to actually to make sure that we stayed at the bottom of the economic and
Yeah.
social ladder. Um, so I grew up in that kind of environment, which is why I'm like super super big on education now.
Nah, for
So
real. For
I
real.
always have the feeling like I'm catching up, because in
Nah.
my early years, in my formative years, we didn't have that sense of education like that said, like say West African immigrants and migrants have,
True. Because
that
education
keen
is all we
sense that
knew. Like,
education is all you
yeah, if
know.
you didn't have an education, you're done. That's how they saw you. You killed yourself. It was
Right,
suicide as far as my grandparents were concerned. If you didn't have an education, you
right,
killed yourself.
right,
That's how
right.
serious it was.
So, I mean, we did have a Saturday school network. I do remember going to Saturday school
Right.
for a brief time as well. I'm really grateful for that because it was there that the seeds of like African history were sown in me, I guess.
See, that's very
Um,
important. That's so important, man.
super,
Just little
super
one or
important.
two gems just for you to be exposed that will later on
Yeah,
become this massive forest that is.
right, right, right. When I come back later on in my life, now I'm an older man and going into my middle years, I realized that actually
Yeah.
that Saturday school, it dropped seeds in me that
Mm,
germinated and I didn't
mm,
realize at the time. But
mm.
now those seeds are coming
Are
out.
making
So
all
I
the
don't know
sense in
where
the
I
world.
would be if I didn't go to Saturday school. But that was the premise, that was the context
Right.
for, you know, my kind of, grounding as far as the person that I was. I love football, love sports, because that's all they taught you in school as
Yeah,
a
yeah,
young black boy. You're just good for sports. And you basically told that you got to leave school, go and do something with your hands.
yeah.
You got to find a skill,
As they
a
say.
physical skill,
Mhm.
and try and get a job in the factory, just like your dad, essentially. Um, so yeah, it was only when I left Luton, I left at the age of 17 and I moved to London. Um, and bless her, yeah, my girlfriend at the time, she was starting uni. She was going to uni, and she said, like, what are you gonna do with your life? I'm not gonna say what I was doing with my life at the time, because if the police get hold of this podcast, there might be some problems. But but all I can say is she was the
Shout out to
first
that real
person.
question. That real
Yeah,
question.
trust me, we might get there later on, but she was the first one to say to me, like, no, have you ever thought of going to uni? Have you ever thought of building your career? Have you ever thought of, you know, um, trying to make something of yourself rather than what you were doing?
Mm,
Um, I obviously left Luton and left the school in Luton without much education as far as like grades or anything like that. To
right.
be honest, I can't even remember my grades, but yeah, she was the first one to encourage me to go uni. And I never forget, I went to the clearing day. I think they have a clearing
Yeah,
day
yeah, yeah.
this time. Yeah, so I went to the clearing day, and I ain't gonna lie, man. When I was there and I saw the let's just say the females that were going, women make a man do things that
Bro,
he never imagined.
bro.
I was
That's how I
like, what?
chose my
This is
college, and that's how I
uni.
chose my uni, bro. I chose
I
my
said, this
college the
is
same way. Went to
listen,
Clarence Day,
listen.
and I was like, I can learn something from here.
Yeah, I was like, listen, I'm coming to uni. um, so yeah, I attended uni for the wrong reasons, but I got an education out of it, and I've kind of been, you know, big advocate of, you know, formal and informal education. So I went uni, did a business degree. In fact, before I went uni, I had to go back and do all my GCSEs, do A levels, BTEC. Um, yeah, and then did a business degree. Um, and yeah, just trying to just, you know, build and grow and
Just
study
find your way
and
from there,
discover
basically.
myself. Yeah, like everyone else in life. It's been a journey.
Talk about when you're young. Yeah, when was your first heartbreak?
My first heartbreak.
Yeah, how old were you?
Wow. In terms of relationships or
Yeah,
just in general,
just heartbreak in general. Then we'll go into relationship.
I
Yeah.
think
When did your heart? You like my heart was just broken from that instance, or
I think for most young African boys, the first heartbreak comes through perhaps the breakup of their relationship with their parents. You know what I
yeah.
mean? I think that was my first heartbreak. Seeing my dad leave the family home and him and my mum divorce was quite messy.
Mm.
Um, I remember distinctly like my very, very early years, my earliest memories were my mum and my dad, and my mum being a wife, traditional wife, and my dad bringing home the bacon, um, and us being a family unit. And, I never forget the day he walked out, actually, because my dad was my hero.
See,
Um, and yeah, when he walked out and he didn't come back, I was lost for a while. I'm not gonna lie. Um, I couldn't understand it being so young. I think I was about like 6 or 7. Um, and I remember growing up distinctly having those questions about why my dad wasn't around. And although he didn't live too far, he lived in the same town. Um,
it
I'd
was
go
still a
to
massive
see
change.
him. Yeah, it's still a
Still a
massive
massive
change. I'd
change.
go to
Someone that's
see him,
there from the early
and he
morning to the
wasn't
evening
able to
time.
explain.
Yeah,
Yeah, he wasn't able to tell it like, in an adult way. And for
mm.
me, that was heartbreaking. Um, and yeah, I mean, it probably still is a wound today. So probably,
Did that
but
affect your first heartbreak? If you've been through one already, when you had your first heartbreak with a female, did it affect that?
yeah. So I think what happens when you have a heartbreak, you obviously want to protect yourself, in it. You build up a resistance, a psychological resistance to being vulnerable again and
Because
open to
heartbreak's like
people
trauma,
again.
isn't it? Heartbreak will
Exactly.
register like trauma in the brain.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's obviously human nature to protect yourself. It's obviously human nature to, you know, to not want to hurt yourself. I mean, sometimes that's what pain is.
Yeah.
Pain is there to protect the body and
Yeah.
the mind from going through more pain. It's there
Mhm.
to say, stop, go no further,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's danger.
There's danger ahead.
Um, so that trauma, and then all of the other traumas. So the trauma of racism, for example, the
Mhm.
trauma of the heartbreaks I went through at school. So one of the heartbreaks I had at school, for example, was I was really good at maths,
Mm.
and
Bruh.
I never understood. They put me in, I think there was 6 sets for maths. I don't know if they have sets now.
No, not sets now, but I had sets when I was in school as well. That's set 1 to 6. Yeah, 6 was like the worst. Like that means
Six, six
you
was
can't
like
count.
six was
six,
like people
six is like
who
you can't count, bro.
yeah,
At that point, you
people
can't count.
6 was like people who couldn't even speak English.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were like
yeah,
expression migrants. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Literally, that is like you
And
can't count.
yeah,
You're immigrant. You can't. You're just there with all the special kids. It's just there in
right,
it, like because the government said you can't use
right,
them like that.
right. And they put me in set 4. And really, I should have been in set 1. I was better than all them kids in set 1. I
Yeah, they
remember
put you in
that.
set 4, and then they cap how much you can get. So
Yeah.
that means in set 4 you can't even qualify to get an A. The
I
highest
mean,
mark is a B or
that
something.
was a
So
trauma.
yeah,
That was definitely a trauma. So you have little things like that which kind of build up your, I guess, your mindset of, protection. And, they build that resilience in you, I guess, from a very early age. But yeah, another thing as well, we had really bad eczema when we were young.
mm.
Um, and so we used to get teased a lot. So I remember being on the playground, people used to call us, alligator face and all
Oh,
kinds of stuff,
kids can be mean. Bloody hell, man.
Oh
Kids
man,
can be freaking mean. You're
yo,
like, Jesus Christ. Like some of the stuff I hear now, I'm like, nah, where they birthing you lot from? I'm like, where they birthing you lot? That kids can be mean, yo. That's when you
yeah.
see things in America and other countries where kids kill themselves. Like I understand. Like if you just if you're going through it at home and the world just feels like nobody cares and you allow your self-esteem to drop below a certain point, I can get why he's shooting up the school. Like I get it. Not that it's not in the frame of that it's justifiable, but I understand what can drive someone to do something so wicked. You know what I mean? When you take every, they feel like they've lost everything. You know what I mean? And bullying. That's why I love the anti-bullying campaigns that are in schools because it starts to frame these kids emotionally the right or wrong way. Like because if you're getting bullied all the time, emotionally it can make you more angry. You become the toughest, baddest, so no one can ever bully you again. Or for sometimes for people, it breaks them. They become timid. They always want to please people. So it's such a dangerous thing. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
what
but
do you?
you
Let's get
see,
to the prime, even the prime question that I even forgot to even go into.
well, I want to say something before
Yeah,
that, before you ask me that question. I mean, all of that shapes you. That you
yeah.
bring that in through your adolescence into your manhood, your adulthood, and then I think there's a certain moment where you have to contend with yourself and
Right.
contend with the early childhood traumas that you have in order to become a man or a woman. In a sense, you have to grow yourself back up, right? And
Mm.
so you gotta look into your past and look into where these behaviors, where your emotions, where your paradigm and your thinking stems from. Where your capacity stems from. Um, so yeah, I think I've been doing that ever since I was, in my mid 20s. I think,
Okay.
I've been doing a lot of self work or work on myself. Um, and yeah, I was able to kind of recontextualize and unpick and heal from a lot of the early childhood traumas that
Did you
I
ever
had.
go therapy or counseling or whatever?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's been therapy a few times. And I'm a big, big advocate of therapy. I think therapy should be mandatory, especially in schools.
You're the first person to say that actually. Mandatory in schools. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, no, that would be a policy that I'd strongly back. I mean, I know they have pastoral care and child
Nah, it's, it's,
psychologists,
it's, it's,
etc.,
it's-
etc.
they put you in this
But
room to try and make you feel comfortable, but you feel uncomfortable because you know they've put you in the room to make you feel comfortable. It's like the weirdest thing ever. They tried to give it to me when I
yeah,
was young, and I was like, just because you put toys in the corner or put PlayStation, to
mm,
say I know this ain't my house, like you can't fool me
mm.
into that. But going to therapy helped me in a lot of ways. How did it help you from an emotional point? Did you find out that you were angry? What was the dominant emotion? I always find there's a dominant emotion, whether it be disappointment, anger, or abandonment. There's always that dominant emotion amongst the rest that seems to cut through.
Yeah, so I mean, anger stems from abandonment, doesn't it?
Mm.
Anger stems from abandonment and rejection, and I think that's a key feature of uh, growing up 70s, 80s, even the 90s,
Mm.
because as African people, we're half the time we're rejected at home, you know,
Mm.
um, and then we're rejected in society, and by society, then rejected in our peer groups. There's always this thing of trying to find, try to find your tribes, and
Yeah,
and
that's what people
that's
do. That's what people do. Well, I think human
yeah,
beings are
that's
tribal like nature. I think everything nature, when I look at nature, even from plants to animals to the birds to the even the algae, like there's always a group, there is always a ecosystem where everyone lives in this city, you know what I mean, or in that
mm,
space. I find it very normal if you go into a room. I used to debate this with my boy, and I said to him, I said, look, if you go into a room, right, and you're going for like a job interview, back in the day when there was like hundreds of you for the job interview and you lot had to do exercises and they weeded you off one by one. So
mm,
they used to do that. When you go in there, I used to tell my friends I would find myself feeling more comfortable approaching the black guy.
mm,
This is like I'm age 18, 19. I just look for the black guy. And if I don't
mm.
find a black guy who speaks like me, who comes from where I come from, and if I definitely can't find that, then I'm quiet. You will hear nothing from me the whole
Right.
situation unless what I need to do. And I find human beings very tribal in our nature of how we gravitate towards each other. Friendships are like that. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? You just hang around with people who you identify with. You wouldn't just hang around someone that just annoyed you 24/7. Do you know what I mean? There's something you identify with that keeps you in that bit.
Mm.
I've been underneath that belief that human beings are tribal in our nature. We're very, like there's more of me. There's always a duplicate. You know what I mean? It's some
Yeah.
sort of you know what I mean? Because cells divide, isn't it?
Well,
So you have to end up with like billions of people similar.
well, this is the central theme of belonging, isn't it? And
Mm.
if you grow up and you don't belong anywhere, so you don't have a peer group or a social group.
Mm.
In Luton, for example, where I grew up, there was only three of us there. There was only three African kids, um, and we couldn't fit in with the Europeans and the European culture.
Mm.
Um, and I couldn't find a peer group and a culture that you know
Mm.
matched my values and the things that
Where
I
you come
thought
from.
and
Yeah.
felt. And yeah, so that sense of exclusion, I think, is another trauma, and it's a big part of why a lot of our children, gravitate and glean to different things. Um,
Explains some of the gang culture based on what you're saying, even. Explains
Gang
gang
culture,
culture
gang
fully.
affiliation.
It explains gang
Ab-
culture fully. They're not feeling great in school. So that's their
right,
heartbreak. Their heartbreak started at home anyway. Maybe Popsy's locked up, maybe Popsy's just neglected, the rejection, abandonment. Go to
yeah,
school, your school rejects you and makes you feel stupid. You know what I mean? Mixed with more anger. You get outside, people trying to mug you and take the piss out of you. Bro, by the time you get into a gang, you get in there for protection because you want to find belonging, safety. You feel like you're
right,
safer here. You people that understand you when you're feeling F the world, they understand what you mean. And they're not judging
right,
you because you feel F the world, because everyone in the gang feels like F the world. You know what I mean? And I feel like that,
yeah.
even the way you broke it down, definitely explains gangs. That's how we all end up in these scenarios because we want to belong somewhere. And until we know more about ourselves, then we start belonging to the right groups.
Yeah. Well, group formation and social group formation
Mm,
is a fascinating area of study,
mm.
because when you look at gang affiliation and you look at how gangs work, the mechanics of gangs, there's so much genius in that, you
Oh,
know, in
bro.
terms of in terms of how they form their own cultural norms, how they protect their space, how they
Language
protect
changes it,
themselves,
the way we talk,
language changes.
slang, all of
Um,
that.
and this is actually a feature of how tribes and nations and societies
Yeah.
grow and build. So I juxtapose them with, how we come to the modern Jamaica, for example,
Mm,
or how parts of West African empires developed and grew and aggregated from families and clans. And
mm.
it's the same in principle, even though some of the things that happen in gangs are quite negative. So I think there's a genius to be harnessed there, but we've got to understand why young children need affiliations is because they've been excluded and detached from
Everywhere.
the very beginning.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's very, very true. I think it speaks a lot to the anger of these youngins are angry. Like when we actually break it down to its atomic value, it's a lot of anger from rejection and abandonment, as you mentioned earlier. When you were growing up in Luton, I mean, you were there probably to where did you move from Luton? You were in your 20s when you moved from Luton?
17.
17. So by the time you move from Luton, you're just about old enough to see enough to kind of start looking at where you need to be finding yourself. Because at 17 now, you're outside, you've seen a bit, you're like, oh, the
Mm.
world is like this. Okay, okay, I see what's happening here. You know what I'm saying? I want you to take me through, some of the hard lessons you had to learn that were painful lessons, but they saved you. Like, give me some of those painful lessons because it's in there we find our redemption is in that pain.
Mm.
Because Lord knows I've got so much.
Right, I think I'm losing you again.
Yeah, I think so. You bounce back on. You, you took your talk though. I can still hear you. Maybe not. But yeah, there's like there you are. I can hear you again. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the question was, what are some of the painful lessons that
Yeah.
I've learned? I think what I'd say to that is that although I left Luton when I was 17, I mean, I wouldn't say that that's when I became a man. Um, and I wouldn't say that that's when I understood the world either, because
Mm,
a lot of young people, in fact, a lot of older people as well, they still don't understand the world and they don't understand themselves in the world.
mm, mm,
So, what I would probably say is that kind of the switch from childhood to manhood
mm,
is when you take responsibility for everything that happens to you and around you wholeheartedly,
mm,
and you learn to deal with the the person inside in order to get the things that you want.
mm.
So I think this came to me in my 30s that no one owes you anything and you
Ah,
are
that's a
responsible.
tough one. Wait, that no one knows you
Yeah,
anything. Oh, see that there?
no one owes you.
It's one
And
of the
you are
tougher pills.
responsible
You
for everything.
that is a tough pill. Like people need to understand, like whether you're young or you're older, it's easier when you can swallow it when you're younger, because when you're older and you're stuck in your ways, like
Mm,
someone giving you that awakening will feel like a disrespect. Do you
mm.
understand what I'm saying? When you're really stuck, like that's one of my fears when I was young. I was like, I don't want to. I hope I'm smart enough to at least get around the information because I don't want to be so stuck in my ways where I can't even hear basic knowledge.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
understand what
yeah.
I'm saying? So, that painful lesson of like, no one owes you anything. Like when I
Yep.
first heard that, that broke my heart. I'm not gonna lie, because I felt
But
old.
it
I felt
but
old.
it
I'm not
goes
gonna
it
lie.
go, it goes deeper than that because not only does no one owe you anything, I think you have to get to a stage where everything that happens to you and around you is your responsibility.
And people need to, for people to get this, yeah, I want him to understand. He's saying responsibility and fault and responsibility are not necessarily the same thing. So when he's saying
Correct.
that, because I remember when someone explained it to me, when people say take responsibility, my brain went to fault, take blame,
Mm,
but it's
mm,
not the same thing. So what we're talking about here, people, is taking responsibility is acting without an authority telling you or someone telling you, doing the right thing without someone telling you to. And the right thing now is up for your better judgment, but it's not saying blame yourself or blame the other person. It's saying what is the right thing to do
mm,
without someone having to tell me to do the right thing. So when you take responsibility, the definition of that is to be able to do something that will have an outcome without someone telling you, oh, you need to be, this is your, you know what I mean? And I think that fault thing stares ego the wrong way. That's what I've seen with people. I think that's why people hard struggle to take fault in things. I reckon it kind of just makes them feel some type of way. Have you ever experienced that? Have someone made something your fault and it made you feel some type of way?
yeah, but you see, I think when you become emotionally strong and self-aware, that those kind of things don't really bother you so much. But I mean, it is tough to look at your life and look around and see. and actually own up to the condition that it's in is all down to you. You know, that is tough. It's a natural thing. I think we're taught it to look externally for reasons why things happen to us
Mm,
and to become victims. And sometimes we are victims, of course. Um, but the way that we internalize um, the things that happen to us, I think is damaging, you
mm,
know, especially for African people, because if we respond to everything that happens to us by responding to the thing that is transmitting or to the experience without doing the self reflection and without doing the internal work, without looking at yourself and looking at the mirror, then you lose the opportunity to grow. You lose that chance to become a better person. And I think that's the key thing in life is that no matter what you go through, what circumstances you find yourself in, there's always challenge to become better and more and improve.
mm.
And when you take that vow to yourself, everything in and around me is my responsibility, then really is no such thing as failure at that point.
Right.
There's only learning. There's only challenges and learning. And so life then becomes a play, a game, if you like, where you know that how you build yourself is going to determine the outcomes. And it's really that
Mm.
which is key, learning to self master, learning to manage yourself in life to be able to get the outcomes and the experiences that we deserve or feel that we want and need. So,
That's very
yeah, that's a
interesting.
big one.
That is a big one, and I think self mastery is something that requires focus. It requires commitment to yourself. Like you said, you take that vow and you decide, listen, in order for me to change my circumstance, I need to change me first. You know what I mean? And the decisions I'm making, the choices I'm making. Because, I get when well, I won't say when you're young. When you're young, it's just more all over the place. But even up to an older age, ego plays a massive role. You
Mm,
know what I mean? I think ego stops, not stops. I don't want to blame it all on ego, but and you can correct me on this one because I feel like ego gets in the way of men learning
mm,
and being able to expand. I think ego creates a level of false comfort in where one has attained a certain level of acquisition, whether it be knowledge or material or spiritual, whatever that is. And
mm.
ego seems to get in the way of higher learning, you know what I mean? Literally higher learning, you know what I mean? Where you should be evolving with the times. Your kids are going to grow and show you some stuff. But if you think you've seen it all, done it all, then you're not going to be open to the new ideas of what your children might tell you. Like, yo, dad, we're not even using headphones no more. We got these two pins that we put on our cheeks and now we can hear everybody. Like, if you, you know what I'm saying? Just coming from where we're coming from and knowing that we don't trust nobody, we were like, no, we're gonna stick to our little big gigantic headphones. This time is earrings and that they got in their ear. You know what I'm saying? And then
Walkman.
you become that older dad that's like that thing's probably poisoning your ear. You know what I mean? Because you come from an era
Mm,
where you just didn't trust anything.
yeah. Well, I mean, interesting you talk about the ego because
Mm.
I don't know, man. I've read a lot of stuff around ego and the egoic self and the acronyms, edging God out, and so forth and so forth. But one of the things I've learned over the last few years, and this is going to sound mad, is that um, your mind is not your friend.
Your mind is
You,
not your friend. Do you know what?
your your your
The past
mind
few
is not
years,
really
I
your
begin
friend.
to really look at my own mind with one eye. Like, what's happening? Where's all these thoughts cut? Like, what's all these thoughts about? What's happening? But yeah, go into it. Go into it. The mind is not your
Yeah,
friend.
so I think a lot of people falsely identify with their mind. Yeah. So let's just break that down for
Yeah,
a
I'm about
second.
to say,
So
like, how do you even do that? How do you
yeah,
falsely
yeah,
identify with your mind? It's like,
yeah, because we have this misconception about, spirit and soul and mind and body and all this kind of stuff. But I think it's important to understand is that you own your mind. Your mind is a part of you in the same way that your body is a part of you.
Mm.
Um, so then that begs the question of, well, what's the you that owns those things, or what's the you that, you know, carries those things? And my simple answer to that is your spirit, your energy, your essence, or consciousness, if you like. Um, so I think that what we are taught to do is identify with our mind and the thoughts and emotions and everything that goes in and out of our mind,
Right.
which can be totally random at times.
Just completely.
um, Completely. I mean, if you've ever done meditation and you just spend 5 minutes observing the thoughts that go in and out, it's crazy.
Yeah. It is.
um,
It is. It is.
but
Definitely.
there is something beyond that where actually you can choose not to identify with those. And what is the choosing not to
Oh,
identify? Where
it
does the
is.
choosing come from? The choosing comes from your consciousness, or your
Mm.
essence, the true you, the you that is, you know, beyond all of that, the
Yeah, yeah.
transcendental
Yeah, transcendental version.
energy
Mm.
that when the body is dead and gone, continues to live
Continues the
on.
journey. Yeah. It's true.
Right,
That's very true.
right.
Okay.
So the way that I look at it is that my mind is not the master. I am the master of my mind. And what I do, I try to train my mind and sharpen my mind, so when I'm in situations and I'm doing life, you know, it serves me, not me serve it.
Mm.
And so the
Mm.
thoughts that come in, I subject those to the
Mm.
authority of my spirit and
My true
consciousness.
self. How does one get to
Yeah.
that space though? So if someone's listening to that and they're like, I know that resonates with me. How do I get there? What practices do I need to start employing now to even
Yeah.
have that power? Because you're talking about a level of awareness to even understand
Right.
that your thoughts are not of your own. You don't need to personalize every thought and
Yeah.
add an emotion to it. Sometimes just let the thoughts just fly by. But to even get that, as simple as we're saying it, what kind of
Yeah.
tips can you give for people to say, okay, how do I develop that muscle so I can observe that? Because when you're triggered in the moment, bro, it's a meltdown in your
Yeah.
brain. That's what's happening. The thoughts are melting. They're not even passing by. They're just melting.
Yeah. Well, this is what I would say is spirituality, right? This is
Mm,
spirituality that we're talking about.
mm,
And spiritual practice is what we're referring to. And the word
right.
practice is what people don't understand. It's like, like you got to do it, yeah? You can't just think it or intellectualize it.
No one's
You
playing. No
got
one's
to,
hearing this practice bit.
you know, you that
It means
actually,
you got to do
no,
this more than once.
I got to go and do it. Like, I got to go gym and actually like
Yeah,
lift the thing if I want to, like a strong body, you know?
yeah. You have to keep going every
That's
day. Every day.
every day. That's what it is. So, you know, you obviously study, and meditation is the two key ones. Um, and you've got to make sacrifice and time to develop and cultivate yourself, and feed and develop yourself, nourish yourself, of course. Um, but then also when the challenges come, you've got to look at those scenarios as the opportunity then to, you know, use what you've learned and
True.
sharpen the skills and the tools. So life will throw scenarios at you. You say you want to be calm and zen and a master of your
Yeah, it
emotions.
seems to be then, it? The minute you say you're going on
Right.
a diet, that's when everyone
You
wants to pop up with
see,
treats. You're like, what?
right, right.
What's
Okay.
why is the universe playing games, bro? Like, ain't nobody got
Right.
time for that.
Can you be true to it when it's in the moment? You know, when someone is insulting you and whatever, then can you harness and subject your anger? Can you manage yourself? You know, life will bring you those tests.
Yeah, it'll put you in the firing line to say, is this really
Right.
who you think you are? Like, are you really that? Because as the minute you say I'm stopping this, it's available. Like left, right. You,
Exactly.
you're thinking the devil's a liar. Like, how? Why now? I've been all year chilling. The minute I
Yeah.
said I'm being a vegetarian, I'm going plant based, bro. Every barbecue, everywhere I went, the meat was smelling. I'm like, bruv,
Beautiful. Yeah.
it's just a
Exactly.
different thing. I want to move to talk about more about just general on how you manage. Your health, man. You've grown through this life, and in so many ways, your body's gone left and right, and mentally, emotionally. How do you maintain these days? How you maintain health?
Well, through the same kind of thinking. So I don't. My paradigm
Mm,
is that my body is there to serve my spirit and my consciousness. It's there to serve the purpose with of which I've come back and I've incarnated in this world. Um, so first of all, I think knowing the purpose of your body is important. It's there so you can do things. It's there so you can move around and express the ideas that you
mm,
have. So when you look at the body that way, then you know that it's important for you to nourish it correctly.
mhm,
Um, and then after that, I think it's again going back to what we're talking about practice. And this is where I've learned a lot from you,
mm,
being in your classes and, being friends with you for all these years. You've got to then re-educate yourself on what works for your body,
mm,
what times to eat, what's to eat,
mm,
what nutrients go in and out,
mm.
how to be the strongest version
Of yourself,
of
for sure.
yourself that you can be, when
Sure.
to exercise, how to have enough sleep, how to eliminate
Key,
stress from your life.
key,
So all
keys,
these
key.
key elements are super, super important. So I've learned through um, A, just believing in the body as an extension of my existence. And then B, that
Mhm.
I've got to practice and educate myself on the best ways to make this body as strong as possible.
So are you fully vegetarian yet?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
No, it
flexitarian?
was no, 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 no. I
You
don't know what
flexitarian? You gonna pull
flexitarian
off with
is,
you?
but no, I remember the time I came back from the States, and the day I came back, I think we linked up and did a
Mm.
seminar.
Oh,
And
okay.
I came back from America with all kind of steak and chicken
I
and
know. Everything went times 10.
all kind of
Everything times
meats
10.
in
Oh,
my system. And that was the day. No, when you broke down what it does to your body and your melanin, and actually when I could see when um when I stopped eating meat, the changes in my body and how my body repaired itself a lot quicker, and how the
mm,
aches, pains, and ailments that I'd had, just as a natural part of aging would, you know, just dissipate.
mm.
Um, so it's almost as if, I couldn't dispute it. You
Okay,
can't
yeah, yeah.
argue when you
You've
when you
heard it,
wake up
experienced it, you've seen it.
and
Yeah,
your body is like ready and you've got the energy and you've got the
yeah.
vitality and you feel like you can do things that you couldn't do before.
Sure.
You can't argue with that. The proof is in the pudding. So no, it was thanks to you which I made the commitment.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I've been reaping the benefits ever since. What was that? 2017, I think it was. So it was, or maybe
'Cause I
2018.
remember I had, because for people who don't know, I had this slide. Yeah, I was at home one day. I was like, I need to get these people to understand what we're destroying. And I was going through things and stuff like that. And my missus was like, yo, imagery is always powerful. And I was like, you're right.
Mm,
Then I found like two images, but one in particular is my ace in the hole. And I always leave it to the latter part of my presentation. But see, when I drop that slide, yeah, that tear
with the one with the
gas,
parasites.
that's
Oh, what is going on?
when I dropped the tear gas, yeah, bruv, I've watched people who had food just look at it and it's like, nah, you messing with me.
I'm
And
done.
they just
I'm
can't
done.
eat it. They literally put it back in their bag. They just, I'm hungry. I'm like, what there's you came with food, I know, but not after that, bro. Like, and they saw it. I'm like, this is what inside you looks like. Because I was looking for
Mm,
imagery just to really drive home. Because when I was studying melanin and started to understand the gift, like when I saw its true essence, and I'm like, the gift, and I'm like, and how we are squandering this gift, it blew
mm,
my mind, like completely. It blew my mind. I won't even lie.
yeah.
Like I really sat down, like, wow. It's like,
Mm,
okay, you're from Wakanda, but now you're just ruining the vibranium inside you. You're just ruining it, just every day, just
right.
toxification. And you're thinking to yourself, like, why am I doing that? I can enrich my
Mm,
experience by just learning about it and just understanding it. In fact, the boost of dopamine that comes over you when you learn these things, then you start to understand like what, like I can convert light particles into renewable energy. Like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? You're like, what are you talking about? Like, you know what I mean? It sounds like some Star Trek, like we come from some
Mm.
Nebulon 5 planet or something. You know what I'm saying? But
Wow.
we've been rocking for such a long time, and I'm so proud of the center. Even what the center has done, like I tell everybody, I'm like, hey, bro, that's where I was working out in the gym. You know what I mean? When
Mm.
people talk to me, I'm like, that's why I was working out, man. I needed to get in front of the people and figure this thing out, because what people don't know is when I started out doing it in North London, and the first one I did, 5 people showed up, and 2 of those people was my sister-in-law and my wife. So really 3 people showed up. So I was like, oh, babes, I wanted to quit. I was like, oh, babes, maybe people don't care about melanin like that. Maybe I'm the only lunatic running around trying to talk about melanin, but I don't think people care. But she was just like, yo, like, let's do another one. Maybe we didn't promote it right. And I'm like, cool, fair enough, because my flies were a bit flimsy and cheap. So then I was doing some research. I was like, oh, maybe I need to go to where I know where black people are at. So it was between Hackney, Brixton, stuff like that. But when I was also going out doing the rounds trying to look for information, most of it was happening in Brixton and Peckham and South London. Like, and I started to see my first entrance into the conscious community was through South London, because they were just easier to find, like the old Caribbean shops and stuff like that. They always have the flyers of like whatever rave, whatever's happening. So I get this little church place and that, and I overheard one woman talking about some money issues. So I was just like, hey, can I hire it? I can pay money. I don't mind. And they literally bit my hand off. They're like, yes, yes, yes. Let's just, you came at the right time. They're like, God sent you. They wanted us to pray. I was like, listen, calm down. Just right time, right place. Let's not get overexcited and bring God into this. Okay. So they give me the
Yeah.
space, and I kept on doing it, and the numbers grew. The numbers grew. I was like, oh, people do care about Melon. They do want to hear it. And then that's when Nigel started coming and stuff like that. And I swear to God, me and my wife used to always think to myself, he's fed. He's fucking police. Watch what we say. They're spying on us. This is how they did Malcolm X and that. First of all, I'm in a little dusty church. No one cares about what I'm doing. I'm all having Malcolm X thoughts like, yeah, babes, we go watch out around it. Like, bro, it's not that deep. Yeah, as time went on, like me and I just started talking and stuff like that. He started coming, and I was like, you know what? And we just kind of linked up from there. So when you told me about the center, I thought like, yes, definitely post haste. Yes, that sounds like a mad idea. So it's even amazing just to watch like how you jump on that journey in life and you're growing, and the people you meet, and the value that they bring, and then you start to find yourself taking that same wealth of information and pouring it to other people, and you watch them, and then you start to
Mm.
understand why knowledge is power, and how it kind of travels through these different groups of people who now have the consciousness to be like, yo, that's real. Yeah, this
Mm.
is it. This is where I need to be going. I need to get a bit more awareness with my culture, with my blackness. I need to start looking into what makes me me. And when I teach, like, I'm a very skeptical person at heart. Like when I really pre myself, I'm such a skeptic, and I don't pre that enough about myself. But when I do get into those lecture bits, I have these moments where it's like a blackout. I can't explain it. I get into this space where it's like there's a teleprompter, there's an imaginary teleprompter in front of me, and it's just running. In a regular conversation, well, not now, I'm a lot more seasoned now, but back then, in a regular conversation, I would struggle to pull some of this information. But I'll
Mm.
get in front of people and I'll see how they looked, like how they were just absorbing the info. And I'll get lost in some next place. Like I don't know what it is. And maybe one day it get revealed to me. I don't know. But you start to connect. It's like I connect with these people, and like we're all in on the same vibration. And I just want to turn the vibration up a little bit, just so
Mm.
people can hear the volume. You know what I'm saying? So you can understand how fly we are. And it's a celebration
Mm.
type of thing. And I kind of I bring that fun element to it. I take away the over seriousness of education and learning, because you know how they used to do us. If you know, I was born in the 80s, the way they drum education into your brain is it became like a
Mm.
task.
Mm.
And it should be fun.
Mm.
And it should be
Mm.
fun. Like I was like, nah, man, I enjoy learning. So I was like, it should be fun. So I always brought that energy to my people. And then I learned, and I had this debate with another teacher. I said, I learned teaching black people and teaching white people are 2 different experiences for me.
For real, yeah.
2 different experiences. It's just I need to get with black people. I need to get them to an energy place. I got to get you somewhere before I can teach. I can't just get out the rip. White people will let me kill them with 50 slides plus and applaud me for it. That's why I love it. They have no problem letting me kill them with slides. They love it. They love how my slides look. But with black people, you can't do that. you have to find a rhythm with them. Because if you're not feeling something, I've been in the debates at the center where the man ain't feeling something and they were shouting. I just had to get aggy and raise his voice a couple times. I like 500 people or something. Like, it's been crazy. People are just like, nah. And I'm like, bro. But I love it about black people. I love the fact that we have all this energy, and sometimes we just can't contain it. If you're chatting,
Yeah,
if you're chatting nonsense, people will let you know you are chatting.
yeah.
So when
But
Nigel
there's a
wanted,
reason for that, you know.
yeah, why is it? Break it.
The reason is that we're spiritual people, you know, and I think innately, um, since time immemorial, our ancestors understood that, you know, the the function of your brain, you know, your will, your intellect, your emotions, and the knowledge that's stored in your brain, you know, is part of you, but the the most important part of you is the heart and the spirit, and that's what you move through the world with. So
Mm,
that connection between what you learn, being able to use what you've learned when it comes from the spirit, when it comes with
mm,
the energy of your purpose, the energy of your being, when it comes
mm,
from your being and essence,
mm,
then it connects in a very different way. Um,
mm,
and that's what real learning is. That's how you get the transformation. You can teach with the mind and the intellect, as
mm,
in the store and the collection and store of information.
mm,
But then, if you really want to go beyond that
mm,
and teach and have real transformation,
mm.
you need to fuse that with the spirit. And
Oh, it's true. It's true.
when we come to learn, we don't just want head top. You know,
Yeah, it's true. It's
that's
true.
not how we connect.
It's
We
true.
connect with our heart.
No, it's
So
true. It's a
when
rhythm.
you
It's a
bring that,
rhythm.
that's it's the rhythm has to
It
be
is.
there. That's a
Every
very
time I
African
feel it,
thing.
every time we get into a space with the people, and I'm just like, it's another language. Multiple language have been spoken because even when the people, I love when people like they'll come up to me and be like, bro, like, how do you, who are you? And they come with this thing, and I'm always like, I'm you. Like, I'm just me and Nigel just trying to kick knowledge to these people.
Yeah.
There's no, we're not part of the Illuminati. There's no secret handshake. There's no ritual we're doing. This is a straight phone call, email to me, and I pull up. There's no ritual. There's no gowns. There's nothing because people really be thinking like, how, like, bro, like, can you mentor me? And I'm like, I can't mentor you. I'm still learning. Like, I'm still jumping through the hoops.
Mm,
Like, I'm still trying to figure out how to find a rhythm. Like, but I realize it's because when I get up there and we're talking about it and talking about my people, I feel a strong sense of spiritual obligation, if that makes sense. You know
yeah.
what I mean? To because I believe in the, 1,000 years from now they will write about people in the 21st century, just like how we wrote about Rome, Kemet, and all these places. 1,000 years
Yeah.
from now, you have to write about people that lived in the 21st century, because the past 20 years has been nothing short of a freaking apocalyptic movie, black. The last 20 years has been an apocalyptic movie, bro. It's the
Mm,
2000 we jump into it, 2001 madness. From
mm,
then on, it's been series of madness. 2020 madness. It's just always a madness.
mm.
And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, yo, with all of this going on, they're gonna write about us. They're gonna be like, what we did in this time and how did we talk? Because a lot of things changed. Because remember, from 1999, from 2000 to 2020, technology took its biggest leaps. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Because I remember having that brick Nokia phone, that murder weapon, fam. Because that shit was so hard. When the battery pack comes out, you know what I
In
mean?
the case.
The case we thought having ringtones of beep 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 was a thing. Now, like,
Mm,
we don't even care about all of that stuff now. Now our ringtones are normal. You know what I mean? We've gone
mm.
back to that space. So they're gonna have to talk about us. Like, there's no way they're not gonna talk about us. Like, it's impossible. You know what I mean? Whether they
Yeah.
like to admit it or not, they're always gonna talk about us. And that's why I always feel a strong sense of, let me get back to my people. Let me get back to it. Let me
Yeah.
figure out how I can add on. So when they write from now on, like when they write in 1,000 years or 500 years, they'll look back at the stuff we did. How
Mm.
did we contribute to society? What did we do? And it might be a ripple effect. We don't know, the person that might change things came to the center once.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's really how I be looking at it. I'm like, that person might have come to the center once and just heard a lecture by someone, and after that, they weren't the same. They go
Yeah.
down into their life, and they realize, oh, it started off when I went to the center, and this is why it's so important. You know what I mean? That we play our positions and we find our roles to partake in the spiritual revolution, because it's happening. You know what I mean? This is why
Yeah.
when I get asked a million questions all day in my DMs, I'm like, listen, and I can't do the lives as often as they want me to do. I'm like, this is why I'm starting the podcast. I'm like, look, I'm gonna give you all the game. I'm gonna share some of the conversations I get my wisdom from the people I really, really hang with, so they can hear some of these
Yeah.
conversations, because people be really needing to hear it. They be
Well, I
really,
think
really needing to hear it.
there's a couple of nuggets there in what you're saying, and the first one is the function of history. And
Mm,
so when you're void of history and you don't know history,
yeah.
then kind of it stops you from progressing in the right way in the future, right? So
Mm,
that's one of the functions or reasons why we have to know our history, African history. And it's so true. So
mm.
generations will look back, and then they'll hopefully learn the lessons from our time
From our
and make
time,
better decisions in their time.
that's for sure.
Um,
That's for sure.
yeah, and I think the other thing about, you know, being able to understand yourself and being able to look at how you can contribute to society and your community, how best you can
Mm,
become a servant to
mm.
your people, is get out the way, get your mind out the
See that
way.
coming.
This
I
is a
did not see that coming.
this is
I thought you were gonna say he
this
got
is
it.
a
I was hanging on.
no, no, no,
Get
no.
out the way.
No, but you see, this is a spirit
That's
thing.
too
So
funny.
yes, you've got to sharpen your mind. You've got to educate. You've got to accumulate knowledge, and you've got to, um, you know, build your cognitive capacity. Let's
Yes.
call it that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you move in and out the world, yeah, allow your consciousness to direct and guide you,
Mm,
and then allow the mind to serve that.
mm,
Yeah, allow the wealth of your study and knowledge and your cognitive development
mm,
to come through and be utilized and used by the spirit.
by the spirit.
That that's when you will find that connection with people and that truth in everything that you do. So when I see you, because I know I see those shifts in you. I
Mm,
remember from the
mm,
early days where you used to have your slides, you'd be shuffling around. Okay, I've got to say this, I've got to say that, I've got to say this, I've got to say. But sometimes wisdom can come in the most profound and simplest of
mad,
words.
mad.
Yeah. And the spirit knows at all times what's needed, right?
Mm,
It's our life force, and it's connected to everything and to everyone. And
mm,
so your mind is just there, uh, as a conduit, if you like.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the more you let go, when we talk about ego earlier on, is the more you sit it down and understand it as just a store of information and your will, intellect, and emotions that's there to be
Mm.
utilized, then you'll be a lot more happier and successful in your life. And it goes in everything:
No, it makes sense.
family,
It makes sense.
family, business, social life, in all walks and all
Yeah,
spheres of life.
yeah.
If you have that as your principle, peace will be your friend.
No, it's true. And people need to develop more appetite for peace, because as you get older, it's not about having a more turmoil life. If you know you're going the right way when you acquire peace in a much more regularity. You know what I mean? You prioritize it before you get into conflicts with people and stuff like that. Well,
Yeah,
Nigel, before
people
before I let
create
you
their
go
own
though, I
suffering.
need I need some nuggets. I need some big boy nuggets. Yeah. So for P
Well,
for
well, that
young.
that is one. Hold on, that is one there. People create their own suffering, and that's, I think,
Mm,
we needs to come out of it. Like we 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 need to understand is that sometimes we talk about earlier about things that happen to you,
right.
and sometimes you can imagine things happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the imagination of what's happening to you is giving you the emotions that are coming in your body, right?
True. True.
And then when you find out the truth about what happened, it's nothing like you imagined, right? So you
True.
just
True.
created all this feeling
All the
of
suffering for no
unhappiness
reason.
and negativity for no reason. You created your own suffering. And this is what, the person who is unself-aware, I don't even know if that's a word, but who hasn't become self-aware, this
Well,
is what
we're
they do in
unaware
their
about.
life. This is what they do in their life. It's like the brother who, whose girl goes out, his missus goes out, dresses nice and goes to the party, and he's like
Yeah.
sitting at home worrying because she looks so hot. He's like he's like rocking, what's gonna happen? Like his next man's gonna go.
No, so there
Why
be
are you looking?
cigarette. You just
Yeah, 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 yeah. Killing himself with worry. All of that is coming from his own mind, from his own brain.
oh,
And he's the one that's suffering. And when she's come home, she's like, hey, we just kicked it at my friend's house. We didn't even really go out. We couldn't be bothered in the end. And you realize all that thinking was for nothing. All that suffering
that
and
is so.
emotional turmoil is for nothing. So we've got to learn how to stop creating our own suffering and
This is why
pain.
Africans have the saying, "I can't come and kill myself. I can't come and kill myself with Wahala." So, Nigel, man, thank you for joining me, bro. Appreciate the time and the nuggets and the gems that we had a chance to dive in.
No, you're welcome.
Is definitely food for thought, if anything, food for soul, even at this point.
Mm.
The way we've touched on these important aspects of life that we need to embrace. We don't have to run away from pain. We can understand it. And nobody owes you nothing. Like you are responsible for your own happiness. No one else is responsible for you. So that's very important for you. For people to take away from that. So much love, King. I think I've lost you there, but much love anyway for joining us, for listening through. I appreciate everybody that takes the time to kind of kick it with me on this podcast and really get the information. So Nigel, man, what's your part in wisdom for us to take home for the night? What's your part in wisdom?
Uh, sorry, my laptop cut out there.
Oh, yeah, he did as well.
I missed I missed a bit of what you said.
So now I'll just really recapping, just thanking everyone for just tuning in and getting the nuggets and the gems. I said before you even go, I want you to leave us with some words of wisdom for the young men and women just coming of age, 25, 26, just they're grown to take all the responsibilities but lack all the wherewithal to deal with them. You know what I mean? So what was the
Oh,
part in wisdom that you just give them just so they can take that next step forward in their life?
well, look, the most important thing in life is to know thyself. That's basically it. Um,
Written on the walls of Kemet, people.
yeah, 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 yeah. I think that's one thing I tell my godchildren and my own children, know who you are, know what you want from life, know the purpose that you've been given, um, and build your life accordingly. Build the structures and systems around your life to support that, including the kind of people that you affiliate with, kind of books that you read, kind of ways that you study, and the decisions that you make. Um, I think we don't talk enough about how to make good decisions because in the moment where there's pressure or where there's emotions and feelings that aren't serving our purpose, serving the higher good, we can succumb to them. But we've got to learn how to manage that part of
Mm,
ourselves. We've
true
got to
that.
learn
True
how
that.
to let those things pass and make the decisions about our behavior that's going to serve the higher purpose and serve the most good. So my my advice is know thyself, um, and do not think of yourself as your body. Do not think of yourself as your mind, but think of those as extensions of you, and they're there to be harnessed so they can serve your purpose and serve humanity.
That is dope. That is dope. Much that people follow the Pan Africans. Was it Pan African Thought on Instagram?
Pan African Thought on Instagram and Facebook, Pan African UK on Twitter.
That's what's up. So follow, get involved, donate. Come on, people. Let's keep our institutions open and keep them running so they can deliver the research, the think tanks, the workshops and stuff like that. So if you are just hearing this kind of information for the first time, dig in, man. Go and learn a bit about yourself. You can follow Nigel at the Pan African Thought Center, Pan African Thought online as well. Check them out. I was there. That's my school of thought, should I say? That's where I graduated into the public speaker I am now. Um, and also as well, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us, go and stream the podcast, tell a friend to tell a friend because it's healing on everything. Mind, body, soul check. We're out. Thank you, Nigel, once again for kicking it with us. And you will be hearing more from Nigel in season 2. I promise you.
Pleasure.